Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, and welcome to Readings with Regina. And I just want to start off with a fabulous win. I mentioned it on Tuesday. The President of the United States ordered Philadelphia police to take down a Black History event here in Philadelphia. Not just a Black History event, because this was all year round. The President's House. George Washington literally lived in Philadelphia before the White House was placed in Washington. And George Washington owned slaves. So the President of the United States doesn't want Americans to even think about slavery, to just remove it. So he ordered the exhibit to be taken down. Well, it was fought against his decree of federal land. So he could do anything he wanted to do with federal property. You know, the property that once belonged to the Native Americans that were shipped off their own land, put on reservations. But anyway, it was fought and we won. And I want to give a big shout out to the attorney, Michael Cord. This was a big win. The exhibit goes back up. And I bring this up again because there's a literary reference here. The judge who overturned the President of the United States decree, she quoted from 1984, George Orwell. I want all of you who are listening to me to consider reading this book. It is very important American literature. It was written in 1946, 1947. And George Orwell talks about doublespeak, which is what we're going through right now. People say one thing, but they mean another. All right, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but let me also share this with you. A lovely personal thing happened with me. A student of mine, B. Sharice Moore, she sent me an email and she said, Dr. Jennings, 26 years ago, you taught me. I thought I'd just die. It was wonderful. 26 years ago, I taught this beautiful young lady who is now a writer in her own right. I am so proud of her. I'm going to tell you more about her next week because I have a lot to say to you today. But put her name in the search engine. Look up her work. B. Sharice Moore. All right. Now, it is still Huey Newton's birthday week, people. So keep the celebration going. I'll talk more about him a little bit later in the program. But I want to get to the books because this is Readings with Regina. And we're going to start with one of your favorites, I'm sure, The Slave Ship. I shouldn't laugh, but I can only imagine what some of you are thinking about when I read The Slave Ship. So here we go. Sharks followed the slavers all the way across the Atlantic into American ports, as suggested by a notice from Kingston, Jamaica, that appeared in various newspapers in 1785. Quote, the many Guinea men lately arrived here have introduced such a number of overgrown sharks. Now, notice the word Guinea man. Check this out, people. Guinea is a place in Africa. Okay, but so many enslaved people were coming from Guinea land, and that included like Senegal, Mali, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Liberia. It included a lot of different nations and ethnic groups on the continent of Africa, to the point that the lingo, the language, English started to change. Slave ships were called Guinea men. Can you imagine that? Money. There were monetary units called guineas. Now, I want to share this with you. I wrote beautifully about what I'm saying to you in this book, Malcolm X and the Poetics of Haki Madhubuti. By the way, this book won an International Book Award. I just wanted to share that with you. But I write about that extensively because what I'm doing is showing how Malcolm changed the language of the 1960s. But I went back into history and I saw Guinea Man. Guinea Man is a ship. The Guinea Man is a slave ship. They called slave ships Guinea men because it was that part of Africa where they captured many of us. All right, let me continue. The constant attendance on the vessels from the coast that bathing in the river became extremely dangerous, even about town. Slaving captains consciously used sharks, now listen to this, to create terror throughout the voyage. They counted on sharks to prevent the desertion of their seamen and the escape of their slaves during the long stays on the coast of Africa required to gather a human, quote, cargo, end of quote. Naval officers used the fear of sharks too. In the late 1780s, an African sailor from Cape Coast who had been brought to Jamaica by a Liverpool Guinea man and somehow managed to escape slavery and find a berth on a man of war, killed a shark that had made it dangerous for sailors to swim or bathe around the vessel. He might have been a hero to his mates, but the commanding officer took a different view. As it happened, that shark had, quote, prevented a number of desertions, end of quote. So the African sailor, quote, got a merciless flogging, end of quote, for killing it. The brother sailor was whipped for killing a shark. He was whipped. Naval officers were even said to feed sharks to keep them around the vessels. So well known was the conscious use of terror by the slave captain to create social discipline that when Oliver Goldsmith came to write The Natural History of Sharks in 1774, he drew heavily on the lore of the slave trade. The histories of terrorism and zoology intersected. Goldsmith recounted two instances. The master of a Guinea ship, finding a rage for suicide among his slaves from a notion the unhappy creatures had that after death they should be restored again to their families, friends, and country, to convince them at least that some disgrace should attend them here, he immediately ordered one of their dead bodies to be tied by the heels to a rope and so let down into the sea. And though it was drawn up again with great swiftness, yet in that short space the sharks had bit off all but the feet. A second case was even more gruesome. Another captain facing a, quote, rage for suicide, end of quote, seized upon a woman, quote, as a proper example to the rest, end of quote. He ordered the woman tied with the rope under her armpits and lowered into the water. When the poor creature was thus plunged in and about halfway down, she was heard to give a terrible shriek, which at first was ascribed to her fears of drowning. But soon after, the water appearing red all around her, she was drawn up, and it was found that a shark, which had followed the ship, had bit her off from the middle. Other slave ship captains practiced a kind of sporting terror, using human remains to troll for sharks. Quote, our way to entice them was by towing overboard a dead Negro, which they would follow till they had eaten him up. End of quote. Yes, my darlings, those were slave ship captains. This is the ordeal that our people went through to be brought over to the Americas, to be used for centuries of free labor and free sex. All right. Our next book, which you know I love very much, is by Harriet Jacobs, but in the book, she is Linda Brent, and this book is called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. This book is exceedingly important because it is actually written by a sister that was enslaved. And the reason that we even have this book today, I want to thank this white woman, Lydia Mariah Child, because she insisted and helped that Linda Brent, it's really Harriet Tubman, write. Did I say Harriet Tubman? I don't mean it. Harriet Jacobs, write this book. This book was written in the 19th century, and this is an actual enslaved sister girl. Okay, here we go. The winter passed undisturbed by the doctor, that's a pedophile enslaver. The beautiful spring came, and when nature resumes her loveliness, the human soul is apt to revive also. My drooping hopes came to life again with the flowers. I was dreaming of freedom again, more for my children's sake than my own. I planned and I planned. Obstacles hit against plans. There seemed no way of overcoming them, and yet I hoped. Back came the wily doctor. I was not at home when he called. A friend had invited me to a small party, and to gratify her, I went. To my great consternation, a messenger came in haste to say that Dr. Flint was at my grandmother's and insisted on seeing me. They did not tell him where I was, or he would have come and raised a disturbance in my friend's house. They sent me a dark wrapper. I threw it on and hurried home. My speed did not save me. The doctor had gone away in anger. I dreaded the morning, but I could not delay it. It came warm and bright. At an early hour, the doctor came and asked me where I had been last night. I told him. He did not believe me and sent to my friend's house to ascertain the facts. He came in the afternoon to assure me he was satisfied that I had spoken the truth. He seemed to be in a facetious mood, and I expected some jeers were coming. Quote, I suppose you need some recreation, end of quote, said he. Quote, but I am surprised at your being there among those Negroes, little N. It was not the place for you. Now, she's a Negro too. I just want to explain that. But she's probably, and I'm sure she is a light-skinned Negro. So there was that separation that today you all call colorism. See, the light-skinned blacks were better than the brown-skinned and the dark-skinned blacks. Understand that. They would bring more money on the slave auction. Okay. Where am I? It was not a place for you. You are not allowed to visit such people. He went on to say, quote, I have seen very little of you late, but my interest in you is unchanged. He been after the baby girl since she was 12. She about 19 now. When I said I would have no more mercy on you, I was rash. I recall my words. Linda, you desire freedom for yourself and your children. and you can obtain it only through me. See, Lord. But if you agree to what I am about to propose, you and they shall be free. There must be no communication of any kind between you and their father. Now, I will procure a cottage where you and the children can live together. Your labor shall be light, Linda, such as sewing for my family. Think what is offered you, Linda, a home and freedom. Let the past be forgotten. If I have been harsh with you at times, your willfulness drove me to it. You know I exact obedience from my own children. He's got a wife and kids, you know. And I consider you as yet a child. He's old enough to be her grandfather. He paused for an answer, but I remained silent. Why don't you speak? Said he. What more do you wait for? Nothing, sir. Then you accept my offer? No, sir. His anger was ready to break loose, but he succeeded in curbing it and replied, You have answered without thought, but I must let you know there are two sides to my proposition. If you reject the bright side, you will be obliged to take the dark one. You must either accept my offer or you and your children shall be sent to your young master's plantation, there to remain till your young mistress is married, and your children shall fare like the rest of the Negro children. I give you a week to consider what I have offered. Now, you see, let me remind you, good people, enslaved people were passed through families. Okay? His daughter actually owned her, but his daughter was young. He had several plantations, and he's telling Linda, you either be my mistress, and I'm using a nice word here, mistress, or you will be enslaved for real, you and your children. So this is Linda Brent's dilemma. Okay, now I'm going to go to my next book, Ida B. Wells. Oh, I always say this. If any of you don't know Ida B. Wells, look her up. Isn't she gorgeous? I just love her look. Now, Ida comes to us when slavery is over. Linda was in slavery. Ida is not. Ida comes along right after slavery is over in the late 19th century. And where I'm going to pick up, Ida B. Wells's friends have been lynched. They were shot to death because they were in competition, not on their part. A white grocer considered them in competition with his grocery store. So the white dude had him killed. And the law was on the white people's side. Nobody went to jail for the killing of these three brothers who had families. Yes. So here we go. Now remember, Ida works for the Free Press. That's a newspaper. Late 19th century newspaper. Here we go. This advice of the free speech, coupled with the last words of Thomas Moss, was taken up and re-echoed among our people throughout Memphis. Hundreds disposed of their property and left. Reverend R.N. County and Reverend W.A. Brinkley, both leading pastors, took their whole congregations with them as they too went west. Memphis had never seen such an upheaval among colored people. Business was practically at a standstill, for the Negro was famous then as now for spending his money on fine clothes, furniture, jewelry, and pianos and other musical instruments, to say nothing of good things to eat. Go ahead, y'all. Music houses had more musical instruments sold on the installment plan thrown back on their hands than they could find storage for. Housewives found a hitherto unknown scarcity of help and resorted to the expedient of paying their servants only half the wages due them at the end of the week. 6 weeks after the lynching, that's the killings of her friends, the superintendent and treasurer of the City Railroad Company came into the office of the Free Speech and asked us to use our influence with the colored people to get them to ride on the streetcars again. When I asked why they came to us, the reply was that colored people had been their best patrons, but that there had been a marked falling off of their patronage. There were no Jim Crow streetcars in Memphis then. I need to point this out. Segregation did not exist right after slavery stopped. Segregation didn't exist. Blacks and whites could ride the streetcars, okay, without designated areas for the blacks in the back of the streetcars. Okay. I asked what they thought was the cause. They said they didn't know. They had heard Negroes were afraid of electricity, but Memphis already had streetcars run by electricity in 1892. They wanted us to reassure our people that there was no danger and to tell them that any discourtesy toward them would be punished severely. Now you see how these people try to paint Negroes as stupid. He actually said that Negroes were scared of electricity. This is why they stopped riding the streetcars. They were already making up lies and deceptions about our people right after slavery was over. But I said that I couldn't believe it because electricity has been the motive power here for over 6 months. See, this was all new. And you are just now noticing the slump? How long since you have observed the change? About 6 weeks, said one of them. You see, it's a matter of dollars and cents with us. If we don't look after the loss and remedy the cause, the company will get somebody else who will. So, this is Ida talking now. So your job, your own job depends on Negro patronage? I asked. And although their faces flushed over the question, they made no reply. You see, it's like this, said the superintendent. When the company installed electricity at a cost of thousands of dollars last fall, Negro labor got a large share of it in wages, in relaying tracks, grading the streets, etc. And so we think it is only fair that they should give us their patronage in return, said I. They were doing so until 6 weeks ago, yet you say you don't know the cause of the falling off? Why, it was just 6 weeks ago that the lynching took place, you tell them, Ida. But the streetcar company had nothing to do with the lynching, said one of the men. It is owned by Northern capitalists and run by Southern lynchers, I retorted. Go ahead, Ida. We have learned that every white man of any standing in town knew of the plan and consented to the lynching of our boys. Did you know Tom Moss, the letter carrier? Yes, he replied. A finer, cleaner man than he never walked the streets of Memphis. I said, he was well liked, a favorite with everybody, yet he was murdered with no more consideration than if he had been a dog. Because as a man, he defended his property from attack. The colored people feel that every white man in Memphis who consented to his death is as guilty as those who fired the guns which took his life. And they want to get away from this town. Don't you just love Ida B. Wells telling these lion, dog, white men, the truth. Well, Negroes were scared of electricity, so yeah. Yo, there had just been a killing of 3 black men shot down. One had his eyes gorged out. These white men are and have been demonic. Okay, let me pause, pull myself together. And I got a couple comments. Let me bring them up. Oh, Sabu, where you at? Let me see. Let me pull. I'm trying to get this. Where am I? Here it is. Oh, Sabu. Hi, Regina. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your wisdom towards our community. We're listening. And today's my Black Power, Zabu. Then you and Huey Newton, okay, came in on that same Aquarian energy. Happy birthday and celebrate it all week, not just today, all week. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about Huey in just a minute. Thank you. All right. We got speak to yo. That's what I'm here for, my dear. That's what I'm here for. And she also said, and she was. Now you got to remember, she's living in a town with all of these terrible white people. Okay, if you saw Tuesday's show, I'm not going to go over it because I got a lot to cover today. If you saw Tuesday's show, you know what those white folks did with the backing of the law, with the backing of a judge. Okay, this is serious what our people have gone through. All right, but Ida, bless her heart. Ida, let me show you her picture again because she's Wonder Woman. She took no tea for the fever. And she told those white people off. And you know what, people? You know what else I want you to understand? Martin Luther King knew this. The Negroes stopped riding the trolley. That's a boycott. They stopped buying white goods. That's a boycott. And look what happened. The whites went to Ida B. Wells at the Free Speech, the newspaper, to try to encourage her to tell the Negroes to come on back and do business with them. Understand this, Black people. Understand the power of retreating from white America. Hello. All right, where am I now? Oh, Assata, 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 Assata. Here we go. Now, this section, Assata's back in prison now. Before, we were talking about Ida. We were talking about Assata as a child. She was giving us her child, which was fabulous. Now, though, in this chapter, we're back to her being an adult and she's in jail. It seemed like the middle of the night. Someone was calling me, waking me up. What did they want? Suddenly, I was aware of all kinds of activity. Police, the crackling of walkie-talkies, handing me a bathrobe. What's going on? I asked. You're being moved. Where am I being moved to? You'll find out when you get there. A wheelchair was waiting. I figured they were taking me to jail. There was a caravan of police cars outside the hospital. It looked like I was going to be in a parade again. The ride was pleasant. Just looking at houses and trees and people passing by in cars was so good. We arrived at the prison at sunrise, in the middle of nowhere. It was an ugly 2-story brick building. They pushed me up the stairs to the second floor. I was put in a cell with 2 doors. A door of bars was on the inside, and directly outside of that was a heavy metal door with a tiny peephole that I could barely see through. The cell contained a cot with a rough green blanket on it and a dirty white wooden bench with 100 names scratched on it. Adjacent to the cell was the bathroom with a sink, a toilet, and a shower. Hanging above the sink was the bottom of a pot or pan. It was supposed to serve as a mirror, but I could barely see myself in it. There was one window covered by 3 thick metal screens facing a parking lot. a field, and in the distance, a wooded area. I walked around the cell, to the bath, to the window, to the door, back and forth until I had tired myself out. I was still pretty weak. Then I lay down on the cot and wondered what this place was going to be like. Here I was, my first day in prison. All right, I'm going to stop there because I have other stuff that I want to discuss with you. Oh, Assata's in jail. We'll pick that up on Tuesday. Now, let me tell you about Alprentice Bunchy Carter. This is him in the left side of the screen. This is two pictures of him. I loved this brother from afar. I would see Bunchy when I went to central headquarters in Berkeley, in San Francisco. I would just look at him. This was one of the baddest brothers, the baddest cat I had ever seen. Bunchy was just phenomenal. He was absolutely drop dead gorgeous, handsome as could be. And he had been, before he went into the party, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, he had been a banger, not just a gangbanger, a gang leader of thousands of Slawsons. They were the Slawsons. But he got politicized. At first, he didn't want to join the Panthers because he thought Huey and Bobby, they were college boys. He didn't, he's a leader of the Slawsons. He wasn't going to be behind no college boys until he met, hold on. He met this brother, Huey P. Newton. He met this brother, Huey P. Newton. He met these brothers, Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton. Once Bunchy met them brothers and realized that college boys could be bad as well as gangbangers, and they also politicized him. Now, he was no novice himself when he met the Panthers, because he had been in prison. He had been with Eldridge Cleaver, the Minister of Information of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, and prior to getting out of jail, they were going to join Malcolm X's new organization. Yes. However, Malcolm was assassinated, as we all know, and the Panthers were right on the scene after that assassination of Malcolm. Let me make this point very clear to all of you. It would not have been a Black Panther Party for Self-Defense had it not been for a Malcolm X, because it was Malcolm who was the foundation of learning, the fount of learning for Huey P. Newton and Bobby G. Seale. But this is Alprentice Bunchy Carter. And let me tell you why else I love that brother. Bunchy was a poet. Bunchy was a poet. And his poems would be printed in the Black Panther newspaper, and I would read a poem. Oh, I wasn't writing then. I wasn't doing nothing but being a soldier, rank and file member of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. And Bunchy was in L.A. That's about 300 and some miles away from Oakland, where I was. But every now and then, he'd come down to central headquarters, and I would just look at him. I couldn't say nothing to him. Everybody loved Bunchy. And Bunchy was killed by the US organization. Yo, Bunchy, then right up to now, was one of the baddest, greatest brothers I have ever met. And I just wanted to introduce you to him. Look at that. Look this. Take it in. Take it in. He was a model among men. Definitely someone that they imitated. So what I decided to do today, well, first of all, let me show you this. I wrote about Alprentice Bunchy Carter in this book, Poetry in the Black Panther Party, From Ancestral Memory, Morphogenetic Fields to hip hop. I wrote a complete chapter about this brother because I want y'all to know him. I always want brothers and sisters to know their unsung heroes and to celebrate them. So, in closing for today, I thought that I would read one of his greatest poems that I absolutely adore. I'm reading it from my book. I love my books. All right. And this is called Black Mother by Bunchy, by Alprentice Bunchy Carter, one of the baddest Panthers who ever lived. And he was willing to give his life for you, to move our race forward. He was not only drop dead handsome, he was absolutely fearless, absolutely courageous. Black Mother, I must confess that I still breathe, though you are not yet free. What could justify my crying start? Forgive my coward's heart. But blame me, not the sheepish me, for I have just awakened from a deep, deep sleep. And I be hazed and dazed and scared, and vipers fester in my hair. Black Mother, I curse your drudging years, the rapes, the heartaches, sweat, and tears. But this cannot redeem the fact. You cried in pain, I turned my back and ran into the mire's fog and watched while you were dogged. And I died 1,000 deaths. But I swear, on siege night, dark and gloom, a rose I'll wear to honor you. And when I fall, the rose in hand, you'll be free and I a man. For a slave of natural death who dies can't balance out to 2 dead flies. I'd rather be without the shame. A bullet lodged within my brain. If I were not to reach our goal, let bleeding cancer torment my soul. Apprentice Bunchy Carter. Yes, a poet and a panther. Now, we in the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense at that time, we would say these 2 lines all the time. For a slave of natural death who dies can't balance out to 2 dead flies. For a slave of natural death who dies can't balance out to 2 dead flies. There were other sayings that we would say these things while he was alive. We love Bunchy. And let me share with this. I've never told nobody in public this. Understand, when those double agents killed Bunchy and John in LA, Bobby Seale had to do everything within his power to keep Panthers from taking revenge. Yes! Bobby was right, but it broke our hearts. Bobby Seale said, look, if we go after another black group, what will our people think of us? We will just look like 2 gangs fighting it out. No! It was hard, though. It was hard. We loved Bunchy. We imitated Bunchy. And his killers walked out of jail. What does that tell you? So I'm going to stop right here. I've given you a lot to chew on. I want you to always share my videos, especially with young people or those younger than you, because y'all are probably young people too. Share my words. Once again, I want you to know everything that I know. Then you can treat it appropriately within your time era as a younger person. So know that I love you dearly. Wait a minute. Let me see what I got here. Okay. So, what's she saying? Right. It was hard, it was because we just loved Bunchy. He was, so when I read to you about Ida losing her friends, Thomas Moss and Calvin and Henry, I know exactly what that feels like because they were prosperous, smart men. And it is those kind of Black national freedom fighter smart men that white America wants to kill. Take a really good look at who white America promotes. Look at the blacks that are being promoted. Look at them. Look at the blacks that just mimic what the lying mainstream media says to you. You are being lied to. Find other alternative news programs to look at. I'll tell you more about that next Tuesday when I see you. Now, you know, people, you know I love you dearly. You know I pray for you every night and every morning, and that is the God's honest truth. So celebrate Huey P. Newton's birthday, and if your own birthday falls within this time period, celebrate for at least a week. And I will see you. Oh, one more thing I want to say. Do like these videos. I'm not sure what that means, but like them. I don't know. But in any event, I was told to say that. Okay. I will see you next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Bye now.